You are listening to Analog Spectrum, saying stupid things for over 50 years.
Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, hello everybody. This is Tony speaking to you again in another podcast. As we agreed last time, we're not going to number these, but this is number 7, I think.
Right. Without numbering them, it's 7.
Yes.
7.
And who are you?
Me? Oh, yeah, sorry. We're doing the introduction thing. I
We're
forgot, man.
starting to
Geez, everybody knows me, right?
I know.
No. So I'm Doug, and we're here to enlighten you on some wonderful things today.
Yeah, we're trying a few new things. And one thing we have one of my dogs in here now, so if suddenly everything starts to go sideways, it's her fault.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm not blaming her.
We're blaming you, Susie. Blaming you.
Nice. Okay, so, all right, so, and the second new thing we're doing today is we're going to try to get a little controversial here.
Uh-oh.
We're going to do it. We're going to talk about bands that we think might be either overrated, and there may be some underrated bands in here too, but I kind of leaned hard on the overrated.
Yeah, I split my list about 50-50, but believe me, I'm very opinionated when it comes to the overrated.
Certainly, and we were talking about this before. We were talking about this last night, and I want to say I kind of broke up the overrated in two categories.
Okay.
I think one, they were amazing for their time, but they don't stand up, I think, to today's music.
Okay.
And the other is that they were overrated always.
Always. Okay.
Okay. So that's my thought.
Do you want to start or you want me to start?
Sure. I'm really gonna throw one out, okay? And I know people are gonna be like really hating this. I really felt that Dokken was overrated back in the 80s.
Oh, no way.
I don't really think they broke the chains.
Dude, Dokken rhymes with rockin'. So, I mean, it's in their nature to be good.
And the next, I'm going to go ahead and say Nickelback, overrated.
Okay, I'm going to shut you right down because Nickelback
This
rocks.
podcast is over!
That's it, I quit. I'm taking my shit. I'm out of here.
Okay. I did listen to Dokken.
Oh,
I had a Dokken CD.
I got it on vinyl still.
Oh, my. I'm going to need a minute.
Dokken rhymes with rockin'.
Well, it does.
It's catchy. You got to admit it.
The rock. There are certain bands that I listened to in the 80s, and I listen to them now, and I don't know what kind of feeling I get, but it's not a good feeling. I'm just kind of like, oh.
Okay, you got to give me an example.
Dokken is a prime example. I did have their cassette, and I remember popping it into the Radio Shack cassette player with that looked like it had been installed by monkeys, and I loved it, but I have one of those Spotify moments. I'm like, I'm listening to Dokken, and I
regretting it.
It's still another band along those lines, and this is not one of my underrated bands or overrated bands. I listened to Asia's first album recently, and.
But those guys have some good technical skill.
They do. They were good. No.
Dokken was, 3-chord rock and hair bands, and they were just standing on the shoulders of 10 other hair bands.
I do like the fact that we're starting out hard on Dokken. It was a one-line joke. I wrote in my notes. Oh, yeah. I'll make a joke about Dokken. And all right, we're 40 minutes later.
Okay, yeah, well, so I was going to suggest we move on. But
yes, let's move on.
On a more serious note, I'm throwing Neil Young under the bus.
Of course.
We talked about him before. And
there are a few right out of the... Let's go ahead and rip that Band-Aid off. Okay. Neil Young, he is in my category of never understood why he was popular.
Yep, same here.
And maybe if he was a poet, I'd be like, well, and I'm not somebody that leans hard on poetry, but I don't think his music's particularly good. His voice is very difficult for me to listen to. Yep. And if people were to say, well, you just require somebody that's extremely melodic. No. There's all sorts of rock stars, all sorts of singers that have voices that are not great. We can go right to the source here. Tom Petty. Yeah. Not particularly melodic. Yeah. Love his music.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I forgot to mention another thing which would put somebody on overrated, and we did talk about that in the previous podcast. If I'm putting together a playlist and somebody says, hey, you don't have any blank in here, I'd be like, there is a good reason I don't have any blank in here, because I do not like any of their songs. Because there are bands that I may consider overrated, but they may have like one or two songs.
A couple tunes, yeah.
And I will throw one out that people are going to hate on me about. The Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
There are Rolling Stone songs that I enjoy, that I think are great, but as a overarching band, they're not on my top 10.
Okay.
But they do have songs that I like, know, and
yeah, it's interesting because I'll agree with you on that.
right.
And the only time that I will defend saying I like the Rolling Stones is when we started to get into the Beatles argument, which they're probably number one on my overrated list. But,
Beatles, yeah.
Yeah. But I was never a Beatles guy.
No.
I'm a Rolling Stones guy. And they were pretty much the same era, and
Right.
they had two very different takes on music. And I didn't like the Beatles
Right.
take. I liked the Rolling Stones take. So
Right.
outside of that, I will say to you that I don't own very many of their records. I own a couple.
The Stones.
Yeah, the Stones. But I will say, like, there are bands out, like Nickelback that you just mentioned, right? Whatever. They're okay. But there's a couple of their songs I'm like, that's actually a really good song.
It's got a hook.
Yeah, right? But the Stones have that, but there's like 15 or 20.
Okay.
Again, they've been around forever, and they're very prolific writers, so
Right.
they got a lot of music out, so that might contribute to that. But they have a lot of music that I like, but they're not a band that I put the record on and listen to from start to finish. And there's
Right.
plenty of bands that I do that with.
Right.
They're just not one. Stones aren't one. But
Right.
I wouldn't put them in my overrated category.
No, me neither.
Yeah, yeah.
And as usual, we're going to start a podcast with a certain topic, and we're going to diverge.
Yeah.
But the Beatles also, we're on the same page. We already knew this going into this, that the Beatles were going to be in this.
Yeah.
But there was that whole British invasion where, if you look at maybe the three big bands of the British invasion were the Beatles, obviously, the Stones, and the Who. And the Who is another one of those bands that of the three, they're probably my favorite of the three.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, but there's a whole bunch of other ones, like Paul Revere and the Raiders or whatever, but the Beatles are just they are at the time conceptually. I understand, there's all those, like I mentioned on the phone. The Model T was a great car, but nobody's driving Model Ts.
Yeah, try driving that bastard down the
Right,
freeway
exactly.
Right now,
It's like there's a reason why. Yeah. And I listen to other podcasts, and there's always these people talking, "Oh my God, the Beatles," and it's so self-congratulatory. These people are actors, they're famous. Clearly, they're not going to say anything bad about the Beatles because that's going to invite all kinds of criticism they don't want to deal with. But there was with the Beatles, there was that very interesting, like you were saying, 3-chord rock. She Loves You, yeah, and then they come out with like either I think it's Sgt. Pepper's and the White Album and all that. And there's all this kind of experimental stuff, and they did things, but there's all kinds of examples throughout culture where people experimented at the time. It was considered to be brilliant. People still defend it, but.
It's funny because my wife and I had this very discussion on the way over here today. And if you were living during that time and you experienced the newness of it and the brilliance of it, you probably have some affinity for it, right?
Sure.
I didn't. I was too little. And I listen to it now and think, I don't hate the Beatles.
No.
But I just don't... I find their music to be really simplistic.
Right.
And then when they got into that experimental stuff, I'm not one who ever liked psychedelic. I don't like the Grateful Dead
right.
at all.
That's on my list too.
Yeah, I've never listened to them by choice. They come on the radio and they have one tune that I like, and I can't even think of the damn name of the thing.
It was popular in the 80s. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's it. That's the only thing I like. And whatever. It is what it is.
I agree. I wonder if they were just being experimental for the sake of being experimental. Some of the songs,
those guys they started messing around with drugs and all the rest of that stuff. So that I never was a fan of that. I just not, I don't. It's that kind of music, psychedelic, and even like early Pink Floyd. Yeah. I don't like it.
Right.
What is that? Piper at the Gates of Dawn.
Right.
Adam Hart Mother. I'm just like,
right.
That's lost on me, brother. I just don't get it.
Well, one of our your and my favorite bands being Rush, they did experimental things, but it's still, I could still listen to it and be like, this is amazing.
But I think it still has an element of musicality.
That's my point.
Yeah.
That's exactly my point. Is hearing somebody say number 9 over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, whatever.
but then listen to like 2112.
Oh, geez, yeah,
Right.
That's a whole different thing. Yeah.
Right. Well, so I would say that the Beatles, yes, probably. I'm like you. I think I don't hate them. I think they're a band that I just think is, I think they do have some. They clearly have talent, but that's not my thing.
Yeah, and they
Neil Young?
contributed. They contributed a lot. Their engineers, Alan Parsons being one, but
Right.
they contributed a lot to rock and roll and to music in
Sure.
general. So they get credit for that in my book. But
Right.
I'm not going to spend money on them.
Yeah.
Ever.
But Neil Young, can't stand the guy.
Yep, same here. I'm like that with Bob Dylan too. We talked about him.
Yeah.
You take that harmonica,
Dude.
shove it where the sun don't shine, man. I can't stand that guy's voice. I can't
know.
stand his harmonica.
Probably a very, very nice person.
Yeah,
but
no
but
criticism. Yeah.
I
Not
do
like he
know-
cares what we think, right? But
Right.
you know.
Oh man, if I got an email from Bob Dylan, I've
Hey,
hit
man,
the
why
big
don't
time.
you like me?
Yeah.
I heard your podcast.
Yeah, you guys can fuck off, man.
I'm Bob Dylan.
They probably say,
Do you know who I am?
you can lay across my big brass bed, and suck a dick. Sorry, Bob.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Bob. Yeah.
Yeah, Bob Dylan's same.
Okay, so I'm going to throw one out now that this is probably going to be a whole category, but one of the guys that definitely that nails this category down is Miles Davis. So, gosh, people that like jazz and like Miles Davis,
You don't get it?
I just can't. I've tried. I really, because I'm getting into the world of audiophiles, and a lot of those audiophile guys will talk about Miles Davis and some of the recordings that he's made. And I've tried, and the sounds are fine, but it just doesn't fit. It sounds like just people making shit up, and I just don't understand it. I think is the real key to it. So I think overrated might be a misnomer for him. I really just don't understand his music. It's probably a better way to say it.
Jazz is hard
Yeah,
for me.
yeah, same here.
So I probably wouldn't have even included Miles Davis because he doesn't even register with me. I just like,
Right.
yeah, so.
Okay,
But
fair enough.
yeah.
Moving
Okay, so I got one that is going to
on. Go
bring down.
bring down the house.
It is.
Okay,
I am not a fan of the Police.
and I'm gonna say fuck you. One of the greatest bands of the 70s.
There we go.
One
So,
of the greatest bands
I
of the
guess,
70s,
man.
man.
I don't know, man. It's just there's nothing they've ever done where I'm kind of like,
Really?
yes,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Okay, you got to tell me, man. Tell me.
I don't know what to say beyond that. They are definitely, as I mentioned, they're, like when I put together a playlist, if I was looking at everything the Police did, maybe Roxanne, okay? But I remember back in the 80s when they got, they did Synchronicity, and everybody's like, this is just an amazing album. I just remember listening to it and just thinking, there is nothing in here for me. Well, probably the better way to kind of, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because this is a rabbit hole, but I know what I like. I know what I like for music, and we've talked about these bands. You think about like the power of Rush, the Dire Straits, Boston, Kansas, and how they're that very kind of heavy arena guitar rock. I just don't get any of that in the Police.
Okay.
I just don't.
I could see that.
Yeah. And maybe some of it has to do with there was that period where like Sting was kind of portrayed as this individual that was just so arrogant, a lot of ego, and maybe when I was younger that impact that had an impact. Yeah, it made me think, that guy's a dick. I don't blame him for music, but and I know that's probably really not the case now. I mean, he is who he is, but ultimately, and I haven't listened to every song. So you mentioned the 70s. I'm not really familiar with a lot of their earlier work.
Oh, man. Yeah, good stuff.
Okay, well, maybe you can change my mind.
Here's the question that I was going to pose to you. Are you willing to be open-minded?
Of course.
And check it out? And
Because
some of that stuff...
Something we forgot on the last podcast.
Oh, yeah?
Recommendations. So for this one, at this podcast, we have to do 2 recommendations.
Okay, I recommend you shut up and don't interrupt me. How's that? Okay, so anyway, back to the Police.
I guess he's going to edit that shit out.
I have the power.
So
okay, yeah. So on the Police, I mean, you know, I was
I struck a
drummer.
nerve. I struck a nerve on
No,
Doug.
it wasn't.
Our friendship's on the ropes.
Hold on, let me show you my nerve. So yeah, so on the Police, like, so you know, I'm a drummer, and Stuart Copeland to me is one of the greatest drummers in rock and roll. Now, I don't put him with Neil Peart because Neil Peart he was the whole package, right? He had he had the technique, he had the chops, he had the precision like nothing. Now, Stuart Copeland, in my mind, he really delved a lot into the offbeat African rhythm stuff, which is so damn hard to play. And if you can isolate some of those drum tracks and listen, especially in the early stuff, Zenyatta Mandata and a couple of those, it's like, man, that guy is an amazing drummer. And then their lyrics to me are sophisticated. It's not "She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah." They're really, you know. For example, it's a big enough umbrella, but it's always me that ends up getting wet. You know, he's talking about he always takes the hits in this particular relationship that he's in, or whatever. So anyway, so I'm not here to defend the Police forever, but that does surprise me. That surprises me.
Clearly not.
Yeah. that's well, okay, so
40,
let me throw
40
one at
minutes
you
later.
Then. Yeah, let me throw one at you then, asshole. And this is on my list. I'm not just making this up to get you, but Green Day.
I get it.
Pearl Jam.
I
Both
like
on my
them.
list.
Yeah, I like them, but I'm not going to basically freaking end our friendship over it with the Police. But
That's it. I'm out of here. We're done.
What?
We're done. Okay.
Blue Lives Matter. It's just the name of a band, Doug.
Okay. So anyway, yeah, Pearl Jam and Green Day were both on my list.
Okay.
Now I will say this on Pearl Jam. I love Eddie Vedder. That's Eddie Vedder, right? Pearl Jam.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that voice.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh almighty, that is so freaking powerful. Yeah, sort of not like that. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Green Day, I never got it. I understand that there's a bunch of sarcasm in their music, and they're making fun of stuff, which is normally my kind of thing. But yeah, I just didn't get it. So.
I like I do like Green Day. I like pop punk, so I do like them. They're not my favorite band in that genre, and I like grunge, but grunge is not my favorite genre, you know. So, but I get it, you know. There were I like. Again, Nirvana's not on my list, but Nirvana's another one of those bands where I was kind of like, well, they're good. You know, I like them okay, you know, but there's people that pray every day at the altar of Nirvana.
Yeah,
you
like
know,
tattoos and stuff.
Yeah. So I like them, but they're not my favorite.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
All right, so here's one. Now we're kind of getting into artists that I'm just like, I do not get it. I am not a fan of the Pretenders, man. I do not like Chrissy Hynde's voice.
Oh, really?
No.
That's the only part of them I like. I
Really?
like her voice, yeah.
Oh, it's so to me,
thing.
it's just, I don't know. There's something about it that there's a quality to it that is not I'm not a fan of it. So,
all right.
Yeah. And we already talked about the Beatles. And also recently, because of Stranger Things, Kate Bush has kind of risen up, and I'm not a fan of Kate Bush either.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. So,
Running Up That Hill was cool, but
I guess. That, yeah. So, it seems very, very, very redundant song. So
yeah. She doesn't make it to the top.
Clearly not.
How about this one? This is from back in the 70s, and in terms of impact, I get what these guys did, but in terms of listening to their music, I've never liked a single song I've ever heard from them, and I've never spent a penny on their stuff, and that's the Ramones.
Oh, you mentioned the Ramones last night. I was wondering when you mentioned them. I was like, I wonder where that is on Doug's.
Yeah, overrated in my opinion. I mean, again, the overall attitude of that entire genre and the people that listen to it, as well as the attitude of the Ramones, they couldn't give a rat's ass what I think. Right. So and I understand that, and I actually appreciate that part of it, but I just don't like their music. I just don't like it.
Yeah, the Ramones. I mean, they were kind of that bridge between kind of garage rock and punk. You know, I thought, and I don't own any Ramones. You know, I the only song that I would know is like Rock and Roll High School. You know, and I think probably I'm interested. I don't necessarily like, but I'm interested in who they are as performers. I'm not really a big fan of their music. You know, so that's kind of my thought on the Ramones. But when you mentioned them last night, I was like, I wonder if this is gonna be one that Doug likes or doesn't like. Nope. You know, so but But yeah. So no, I'm not a hard defender of the Ramones. But you talk about punk, like probably there's all kinds of like the Sex Pistols. I never listened to the Sex Pistols. Don't any of their songs. I was never a big fan of the Clash. So
yeah, the radio tunes I kind of liked. I mean, just because they were fun, and probably not what they were after, but I consider that all to be very non-consequential music.
Yeah. There was a lot of non-consequential music in the 80s.
Yeah.
There really
mostly was non-consequential life in the 80s.
Yeah.
But,
in the best way possible.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Cocaine and cheap gas. What do you got any more on your overrated list?
We hit them all really fast. What about you?
Well, let's see. I got overrated on here. That's too strong, probably.
I got one. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, as I say, I got Crosby, Stills, and Nash, including Nash Young.
Yeah.
And their harmonies and stuff were great.
Right.
I give those guys full credit for that and songwriting and all that stuff. But it just never appealed to me, man. I try to listen and I'm just like, ugh.
I probably would defend them the hardest of all the ones you mentioned so far.
Really?
Yeah, because I do have some Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and only for what you just mentioned, like the harmonies. Like it's not like man, I feel like going out and just tearing one up, man. Put on the Crosby, Stills, and Nash. No, It is. For the right situation, the right mood, I would listen to it,
Right.
And the songs that are the big ones are the ones that I like, like Southern Cross or whatever. But yeah, I'm not a fan of Neil Young. So
clearly talented. This is it's so I would say that my overrated statement is too strong of a word, but
right.
Just one of not my favorites. What about underrated? What do you got for?
I didn't do any underrated.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. There's all sorts of bands right now that I'm kind of like, oh, I really like this band, I really like that band. I think just for the very fact that they're not popular,
right,
kind of makes them underrated.
After one of our podcasts a few weeks ago, I told you about the Warning, and you checked them out, right? They're cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're.
I did check them out. They're excellent.
Yeah.
So.
And I love the fact that you can watch their earlier stuff and then watch their stuff now, and you can definitely see that they're getting polished. They're getting professional help, and I think that's making them even better and better.
Right.
But so I got a couple for you here. What do you know about Norah Jones?
Very little.
Again, this is where I'm starting to lean into the audiophile world. If you set up a nice, this is not. I mean, it's good music, so you can just throw it in your car and drive around, and it's okay. But it's not like, ooh, wow, that's like you said, let's go throw on some Norah Jones. But if you set up a nice, quiet environment and you listen, like, oh my God, that woman is talented, man! Just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful vocals. And again, I'm trying to set up a stereo system that can take advantage of some of that, which I'll talk about later. But and then what about Calio? Do you know anything about Calio?
Not a bit.
So when I was in school, in film, I went to film school, and I was in film school. They also did audio. So we recorded audio. There was a bunch of audio engineers training there. And one of the things that they did is they invited artists in to play on our stage, and has really awesome recording setup. And he was one of the guys that they brought in. And oh man, it was crazy cool. I just loved listening to that. And he's an Icelandic artist, and his style is like somewhere between rockabilly, Nashville. I don't know. He's got this crazy weird mix. But it's very cool. I'll let you listen to some of that. It's good.
Plus, he plays the Icelandic lava tube lute.
He does. The lute. Icelandic lute.
Made from lava tubes.
Yes, exactly.
So, and snow.
What about Natalie Merchant? What do you know
about
her?
I know, yeah. I'm familiar with Natalie Merchant.
Yeah. She's got a record out. It's clearly her most popular record,
right.
Tiger Lily.
Yeah.
And that's one that Mobile Fidelity put out. And I was telling you yesterday about the Mobile Fidelity fiasco that's going on right now, and we'll talk more about that in a different podcast. But
right.
That album to me is right there with Norah Jones in terms of like vocal performance. Man, I can't really call it underrated though, because a lot of people know it's popular. They know. But I had a couple more. Should I keep going?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I tell you what, I'm only thinking because I do have some recommendations. I have 2 songs, so maybe when you get done, For my underrated, I'll give you 2 of my recommendations.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, I'll throw a cheesy one out here.
Yes.
Joshua Caddison.
Never heard of him.
Painted Desert Serenade.
Wow.
No?
No.
Man. Okay. So, did you read the book? Now, what was that movie with Clint Eastwood? Bridges of Madison County.
Right.
Did you read that book?
No.
Yeah, the book was actually pretty damn good.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I was sold off as like a romance for housewives.
It's kind of what it was.
Yeah.
But I always felt like the main character, the Robert Kincaid, I always felt like Clint Eastwood was terrible casting for that. It should have been Richard Gere in my mind. Like when you read the book and you read the description of the character, it's Richard Gere. It's
Okay.
like it's totally Richard Gere, and he would have brought a darker element to that, which I thought would have. But anyway, so Joshua Caddison is right along that sappy, cheesy, romantic kind of stuff. But again, the production is so good and the songwriting is so good. But yeah, so it's strange because a lot of people have never heard of it. But I'll let you borrow that CD and see if you like it. It's pretty
Cool.
good. Okay, I got lots more, but I'm going to do one more. And this one, you probably know these guys. Temple of the Dog.
Yes. That was, oh my God, that was, Temple of the Dog was 90s.
90s, yeah. So that was Pearl Jam and another band. Their members kind of mixed up and got and then they got together and made Temple of the Dog. And they only ever put one record out.
Yeah, I remember it. It was good.
Oh, man, that's one of those, Tony. I know every song, every word, every lick. That is, to me, it's the pinnacle of that era. It's the pinnacle of the grunge because it's sophisticated enough in its lyrics, but it still has that grunge feel.
Yeah, that came out when we were hanging in Florida. And I remember because we both got that album, and I'd forgotten about it.
Yep.
Oh crap, man! Somebody's got to go to Spotify when we're done for today.
Yeah, check that out. Temple of the Dog.
Well,
I mean,
I need to rediscover that.
it is super good. Make sure you crank it up because it is powerful. It is powerful.
Right.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Right.
Cool. So
Well,
that's that.
Yeah, and so just only because 2 of my recommendations were bands I think are not on the radar.
Okay.
One, how about, have you ever heard of Phil Campbell and the Bastard Son?
No.
Okay, so they're they sound a lot like their new band. Like, I kind of compare them a little bit to Bad Company.
Oh, cool.
Only because they have kind of a southern rock vibe to them, but they're from Wales.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Do they play the volcanic lute? I'm just wondering.
they play the sheep dip flute
The
from Wales.
Kraken lute.
No, but these are discoveries I made going down the rabbit hole, new rock, looking
Right.
around, and most of it I listen to it, I'm kind of like, ugh.
That's how I found the warning. Same thing. I was just rabbit holing it.
Yeah, and you're so much of the stuff they call rock, you're kind of like, well, I guess it's kind of rock, but it's not good rock,
Exactly.
They have a song that's kind of popular now called "Born to Roam," and it's they're and now it's hard to say, oh, it's on their newest album. People release singles and EPs and so forth. I don't know if it's on an EP, if it's released separately or whatnot, but again, when I listened to it the first time, I thought, this is southern rock. This is kind of, like I said, well produced southern rock. And then I start searching out the band, and they're from the UK. Now another band that somebody that I know, I introduced them to Mamas and the Papas, right? And I said, you should listen to California Dreamin', which, by the way, is a great song.
Okay,
Is that what you think?
Okay. I put that right there where you put the Rolling Stones. It's like, okay, they got some.
Yeah.
popular,
I'm not gonna argue with that. I mean, Mama and Papas have like one song, and that's it. And
Dude, I can't think of.
but
I don't remember who the comedian was that talked about. I think it was Sam Kinison talked about Mama Cass choking on a chicken bone.
but anyway, that whole time frame was crazy anyway.
Yes,
but with that said, I told him about California Dreamin', and he sent me a link, and he goes, "Is this the band you're talking about?" And it was a band called Dirty Honey, okay, out of L.A. And they did a song called California Dreamin', they're not covering California Dream. It's their own song.
Okay.
And it's kind of, just so people kind of know what I'm thinking as a comparison, very Black Crowes like.
Oh.
Very much like Black Crowes. And
my brother would like that. My brother's a huge Black Crowes fan.
In the lead singer's voice, just like the lead singer for Black Crowes, he's got great control, amazing range, very solid rock. This isn't their most popular song, but that song California Dream, and I was like, oh, this is my playlist analogy. I dropped it in my playlist. I'm like, okay, this is one that I'm going to revisit. It's excellent, but it is rock. It is rock that makes you feel good.
Okay. So that's an interesting point too, because some of the stuff on our lists are like, put this on your playlist and get in the car and roll the windows down on a nice day, and that's all of Rush music is that way for me. Boston, all that stuff.
Certainly.
But then there's other stuff, like I mentioned the Nora Jones. I mean, like, I seriously, man, I want to create a cool dark environment and sit and just really lose myself in that music, and I can't do that with a lot of music. There's too many distractions for me. Either the musician's not playing well, or the production is not good, or whatever. So like that Nora Jones, that's one that I can just just fall in,
Right. So. Yeah, and I think maybe that's even to my own detriment. That sometimes I'll listen to music, try to discover new music, and I'm just not in the right place.
Yeah, you're distracted with other things.
Yeah, or maybe this is the issue, is that I enter into just about every, discovery effort thinking, I'm looking for the next Rush.
Right.
I'm looking for the next.
Yeah.
And if you haven't figured out yet, we like Rush.
Yeah, we like Rush a lot.
So is this going to be the next?
So that's an interesting question, though.
Right.
That's an interesting topic to talk about. Like, imagine like A&R guys when they used to go check out bands at bars and stuff and try to find their next artist. I mean, they had to have been doing that. How do you find that? What's the magic quality that's in the music that you go like, we need to work with these guys?
It's crazy. Probably like about maybe 5 years ago, I was out at a dance hall here close to my house, and there was a band in there, and they were a rockabilly band, and they were just playing, and I think most of their stuff, it's hard to say. I don't know a lot of rockabilly music, but it seemed like they were playing kind of their own stuff, and man, it was just so good, It was just so, and they were owning it too, They were all like 50s. The guy's girlfriend was there; she was in a poodle skirt, and the way they had their hair, like they grease her hair and everything, and you talk about like underrated. I just couldn't help but to think these guys need. I don't know why. Everybody's not listening.
Well, it's a style of music, right? I mean, it's just. I mean, would you put rockabilly on and throw it in your car and drive around? Like, maybe one tune, maybe two, but and to me, that's limited.
Right. Yeah.
Limited, but So recommendations. I got one for you now. This is a little bit of a weird recommendation coming from me because it's total pop. Yeah. And I am not a total pop guy, but this band only, as far as I know, they only do remakes. But they do remakes like nobody's business, and they're called Broken Peach, and they're from South America, I think. They might be Mexican, but I think they're maybe Brazil. But so anybody who's listening to this, look up Broken Peach, Tainted Love.
Oh, you sent me that.
I sent you that, yeah.
Yeah.
It is. I don't know why. Like all the elements come together for me on that particular track. They do quite a few others as well.
Yeah, they're kind of like what would happen if like Rob Zombie and Lewis Carroll had a baby.
Exactly.
Is that kind of crazy?
Bizarre,
you're like,
man.
What am I watching here?
Yeah,
and it's like, it's like the world's craziest Rick roll ever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But so there's another one that I haven't even showed Tony this. In fact, I think we're gonna, after this podcast, I'm gonna make you go watch this. It's called Fatty Boom Boom.
Oh my gosh!
It is bizarre, and it's a South African band, and they were in the movie Chappie. Anyway, So I'm gonna make you watch that one because it's bizarre. But,
cool.
But anyway, So other than that, I don't know, man. I think.
I tell you, this whole recommendation of bands, though, the more we're talking about this, the more I'm kind of like, I want to. There's other bands I would love to throw out.
Okay.
But we'll save that.
Okay.
Because I do think this is a good idea, only because as I mentioned towards the beginning, that there's so many bands I know that have never gotten traction, or never. We live in a world right now where it's about how loud can we make it, how early does the hook come in the song, how attractive the person is singing it, how lucky they are, who's this corporate this corporate way that everybody approaches music. So many bands, it's in the probably currently and in the past just are lost. And it's not that they're unpopular. They definitely have their following, but they deserve so much more.
Well, I don't know, man. It's we briefly touched on this before, and that is like, what's the role of the musician, right? And if you go into music to be a famous rock star, that's one track, and that's, I'm not even dissing that track, but that's one way to go. But if you really are a musician, you're going for the music. You're going to play the music, and you're going to have some kind of an emotional impact on your audience.
Right.
And this is why I'm such a huge Steve Vai fan, because he's lived all of that. The David Lee Roth years, and he was in the Whitesnake tour and all that sort of stuff. But ever since the beginning, he was with Zappa in the beginning, but ever since, he just played his own stuff.
What about Zappa?
Oh, man, I don't understand Zappa.
Okay.
I don't.
I didn't want you to get all police on me.
No. You're pissing me off with the police thing, though.
Oh, God.
Dude, I just feel like, this is projection maybe, but I feel like if you understood it more, you'd get it. Like the light bulb would come on, and you're like, holy shit, why didn't I like this sooner?
Glad I didn't tell you what I thought about Pink Floyd.
Yeah, I would actually get in my car and leave if you like Pink Floyd.
No, I like Pink Floyd.
I hope so.
Yeah, I do like Pink Floyd. I do think that just like what we were talking about with other bands, I'm probably not going to be, man, we're going to the beach. Where's the Floyd?
Right.
Yeah, it's same with things like David Bowie, in his more experimental time. I mean, there's things that are great, Not like
the other things like what?
Well, yeah, David Bowie. It's like you had the whole Ziggy Stardust time, and it's like I think I'll do a duet with with Mick Jagger dancing in the streets. You're like, what the fuck is it? I mean, at the time, when you're 16 years old, you're like, I guess that's okay.
Yeah.
And then you look back on it, and it's like, this is like their ebony and ivory.
Yeah.
What is this?
I'm making a buck or something. I don't
Sure.
know. Somebody convinced them.
Oh, of course. I'm sure at the time when they were like, oh, I get a collab with the other guy. How awesome is this?
Yeah.
But dancing in the streets. Okay.
Yeah.
Enough.
Okay, last one. I'm going to throw one at you.
Okay, go.
I got to one up you.
Go ahead.
What do you think of Elton John?
I love Elton John. Are you not a fan?
If you had to guess, how many Elton John songs do you think you actually like?
Like there's probably 6 or 7, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And he's probably has 60 songs.
Yeah, but he has some that I'm like, I think are some. Well, okay. Elton John doesn't write his own stuff, right? Mm-hmm. That's what is that? Bernie Taupin. Yeah. And he sings it. Mm-hmm. Elton John is probably the king of people missinging his lyrics, right? Yeah. Because it's like,
dude, that's a whole podcast topic, misinterpreted lyrics.
It's like a funeral for Love Lies Bleeding, Funeral for a Friend. That is one that I've had. Like, what's he saying? I have to go back. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I think, but he has songs that I'm like, I think like Crocodile Rock is great. I do like Candle in the Wind. Mm-hmm. I like Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding. Mm-hmm. I think the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road has got probably half of those songs I could listen to. But
don't forget Philadelphia Freedom.
What was that? What's that one? Don't Go Breaking My Heart.
Yeah.
Who was that with?
Hold on. I got it. It's on the tip of my head. I'm going to say Cat Mantino, but that's wrong.
No.
It's
I do know. When this is me.
Tell me.
I'm not looking it up. Kiki died.
That's
I'm pretty sure. Kiki D. And I recently was like, is she still alive? Yep. She's still out there, still producing.
Yep.
So
so that's what I mean right there. Like, who cares? Like, Kiki D is like, I'm making music, man. This is what I do.
Yeah.
And so back to the rule, like, and we talked about this a while back, and
Right.
it's like, you know, in the days of the bards playing the lutes,
Right.
You know, back to the lute.
Right.
It was like we were just entertainers. We weren't superstars. We weren't trying to be millionaires. We weren't trying to change the world with our
Right.
politics. We were just singing songs. And
Right.
sometimes they're introspective and reflective and whatever. But you know, we've bastardized that in a lot of ways in our modern society, and I think that spoils a lot.
Right. Well, and yeah, that's what you're saying. I have thoughts, but
Yeah.
that's a
Thoughts for another podcast.
or just offline conversation.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
but all right. Okay. So here we go again. That's another one in the can. You think?
Yeah, I think so. I think we call it.
Okay. Again, as I always like to say, we really appreciate all the listening and all the support and any feedback, especially the stuff that's optimistic and encouraging. That means a ton to us, both me and Doug.
Yeah, you can blast us if you want. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
you can too. Well, I appreciate constructive criticism, so
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we can roll that in. But just realize that I have very thin skin, and sometimes my wife is like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Somebody said that I say the word again too much," and I know I do. All right, so we're always looking for ideas, and I'm happy to answer questions. Both of us. You can always email us at analogspectrum@gmail.com. You can tweet us, but I do not tweet, but I will listen. I'll see if anything pops up, and it's just Analog Spectrum at Analog Spectrum. We have a Facebook group. You can hook up with us there. Feel free to click on any of that shit. Also,
and we get a free T-shirt for the first 100 people.
no,
There's going to be a T-shirt at the bottom of my drawer.
Yeah,
It's not like an analog. It's going to be like it's probably got holes in it or something. But
one person.
I'll give it to you. Yeah, I'll give it to
You have to come pick it up.
Yeah.
And bring $20 bucks.
Yeah, free for $20.
So and
Yeah.
you can get it at Walmart. And it says Schlitz on it.
Yeah.
So So anyway, leave us a review, positive or negative. I don't care, but positive is always better. And that's about it. Follow us, share us, all that kind of stuff. And we will talk to you next time.
See you next time.
All right, bye.